welcome back to PÖFF TV. I'm Anete, and we're right in the heart of the Black Nights Film Festival. Today, we have a fantastic guest joining us, the brilliant director behind the film, Can I Get a Witness? Let's give a big welcome to Ann Marie Fleming.
Thank you.
Yeah, how is it? How is it in Estonia? How do you like it?
Well, I just got here last night. There was a full moon, and today there is rain. So I don't know. I haven't left the hotel yet. So I'm really looking forward to exploring the old city.
How long is your stay here?
I'm going to be here a full week, so I'll have time.
You have some plenty of time to look at the capital city. How are you, by the way?
How am I?
Yeah.
Good.
A little bit tired because...
I'm a little jet lagged. I flew in from Toronto yesterday. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the questions. Let's start just with the questions. I just want to know, the film is about a young teenager, and she lives in a world that the people die when they're 50 years old. What do you think of life if you and everyone else would only have 50 years to live? Well,
that's a question that I'm asking, but this film is really about climate.
Climate.
And it's an environmental film, and it's about what are we willing to do for each other and for the planet to make things the way that we say we would like them to be. And this idea about people leaving at 50 before they start to consume too much on the planet is supposed to be a ridiculous idea. But I started this story many, many years ago before there was medically assisted suicide. Death, not suicide. Medically assisted death. Before COVID, when we saw that the world can shut down, or governments all around the world can make decisions that affect people at the same time. So these things weren't a reality back then. So this was really in the world of the imagination. And now the conversation is even more relevant because people are thinking about what do we do? What do we do for society? What do we do for each other? You know, what are we willing to sacrifice? So the film has become more complicated because it looks less like fantasy and more resembles something that we are thinking about or living.
Well, you said it's like an absurd environment in this movie and absurd idea. Well, even though it's absurd, was there a personal experience that prompted the creation of this film?
Yeah, two things. I mean, I live in Vancouver, and so I was living in the West End. I think even as far back as 2006, there was a big windstorm, blew down 10,000 trees overnight in Stanley Park, in the middle of the city. There were king tides that were destroying the seawall. This was before, I mean, obviously climate change was still in some people's minds, but it wasn't like headlining. There weren't floods everywhere. There weren't fires everywhere. What's happened in the last 10 years has been incredible, the last 10, 15 years. So everybody is conscious of it, even if they disagree about what is causing it. There's enough of us on the planet, 8 billion and growing, that we know that we can actually make a difference if we work together, because most of us are living a lot longer than 50 years. We have a lot of time. Everything we do as a group, because we are a group, human beings,
yes.
Our group, and how we affect each other and other species on this planet, that we can actually make a difference. And also, the film is shot in Powell River, which is a small community up the coast of British Columbia, and I spent some time teaching there, teaching film and animation to teenagers, and I was very struck by the things they know, the things they didn't know, their power, their talents, and also having to live in a world where they have responsibilities beyond perhaps what they're able to really understand.
So being in this environment also gave some inspiration to do this film?
Absolutely, yeah. So I lived there, I worked there, and I set the film there because it is a place which used to be very economically booming, the logging industry, pulp and paper, things like this. But the largest pulp mill in the world around the First World War, but it had displaced, the indigenous people. It's La Amen, where their village was, is where the pulp mill was, and it was slowing down while I was working there, but had just stopped forever the year that we shot the film, which was last year.
Oh, so it was like destiny, maybe.
It was destiny. It was destiny. But because there's not that type of industry anymore, there are people coming there for, economic reasons. It's less expensive to live there, and life is just slower. And there's all these alternative economies and industries that are popping up now. So I thought, well, Powell River is kind of like a future.
Oh, yeah, that's really nice parallel that you found from this place and the place that you put in the movie. Yeah. Well, I want to know, what are some of the moral challenges within the film that you think apply to the real life?
Well, I mean, even talking about the subject of end of life, of dying, is difficult. It's very difficult for people to talk about. It's very triggering for people. This is a North American film, or certainly a Western film from a Western point of view, because there's a lot of cultures where death is just much more part of everyday life. Like death is the one thing that we all share, and in Canadian culture, it's something that is not often talked about. And so I really do think it's a thing that we need to have a conversation with each other. And what's interesting about the film is that depending on how old you are, you have a very different relationship to this idea of leaving at 50. If you're young enough, you think it's a good idea. If you have young children, you feel very, well, it's interesting. Some people, they think it's too young. I can't go. Like, I want to see my children grow up and have children of their own, blah, blah, blah. But I also know people who say that they would do anything for their children, and if it meant having a better life for them, that they would leave. And I didn't think the conversation would be so much about this, because I thought, like I said, that it was like a satire at the beginning. It was like a Jonathan Swift, A Modest Proposal. I don't know if you know this, but he wrote this book, this treatise about the famine in Ireland, and how why don't the Irish just eat their children, because they have too many children, and then they can have all the protein they want. And of course, he was kidding, but people got very, very angry. But they started to have this conversation, and things did change, and I think in this film too is that some people might get very upset about the film because it doesn't. I say it's a fable, that it's an absurd strategy, but it's not presented like that. It's presented almost like this peaceful, meditative piece. It doesn't tell you what to think. It gives you a lot of space, and hopefully there'll be very different opinions about what the film is really trying to say. And my job, I think, is to stand back and let that conversation happen.
You just want to listen.
Listen. Yeah. Yes, listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said that there are some cultures where death is more often talked about, and you said like in Canada it isn't that common theme that the people talk about.
Yeah, well, what was it like in Estonia?
Not much. No. We don't talk about death as well. And I just wanted to ask, do you think that people need to fear death?
Well, death is coming.
You can't escape it.
You can't escape. You can run, but you can't hide. Death is coming, and it's just part of the cycle of life, and we have to be able to accept it and not fear it. If we could not fear it, that would just change everything.
Yes.
For people, my generation, a lot of us are dealing with aging, ailing, and dying parents or friends. I've lost a lot of people just in the short time that I've been making this film even. And, and in Canada, like a lot of our elderly people are in institutions, so that it's not death, it's like the dying process is kept away from a lot of people, and it's like professionals who deal with the dying. So I don't know, fear death. I don't think people fear death, I think people fear dying.
Okay. I haven't thought about it like this way. Well, I want to ask something about the production of the film, and I want you to tell us a bit the reason to use minimal soundtrack in the film and more often location sounds.
Right. Well, like I said, this film is about the environment, and even though that's not, no one says that in the film. Well, it's. I wanted it there in the sound. Like I think the sound is so, obviously important in filmmaking, but it tells a part of the story. So the nature that you don't always see, you can hear, and so I wanted the music part of the score, because I think of the soundtrack and the nature sounds as a score as well, to be very subtle. Did you see the film? No,
I haven't
you haven't seen the film, but there's one scene where the mother Ellie is played by Sandra Oh. She's just standing in a field. And if you see this in a cinema, like a full cinema, it's quite extraordinary, because she's preparing, she's meditating, and all you hear is her breath, and the whole and that's all you hear. And to be listening to that in a group of hundreds of people, and it's like everybody else is holding their breath. You're just sitting there and listening. The whole film and the sounds, they're small, there's space, and it's just like life is so beautiful that you want to be able to pay attention to all of it and to hold these moments,
So it was like artistic choice. Yeah. I just wanted to. Is this your first movie, or you have done many movies before?
No, I've actually made a lot of films.
Yeah. Is it like common theme to use minimal sound? Is it like your signature, or is it your first time doing this?
No, every film is different, So it's just like I said, sound is part of the storytelling. So what's needed here, it's always different. Yeah.
Well, you said that the actor Sandra, you described the scene where when the breath was only heard, and when I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna get goosebumps.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, the characters go through intense emotions throughout the film. What would you say was the most difficult for the actors to play?
Well, animation is part of this film too, because this world is based on repression. You have to repress a lot of feelings to be able to do what you got to do and get along with people. And I think that's not so different than all societies. The repression is part of, civil society, or it's supposed to be. So, oh my God, what was your question?
Well, what would you say was the most
difficult
for the actors?
So the animation was supposed to express all of these emotions, but the actors themselves found the scenes so emotional. Like shooting the film was so emotional, and the crew was emotional. Everybody was so emotional, and it really came across in what we shot. And so the animation is very subtle now because you just feel it, It wasn't like a sadness. One of the actors said to me, he said it because he couldn't stop crying the entire time. It was just, could you keep it together? He said that he just really felt how precious this this whole thing was, not just the film, but the themes behind the film and this moment and everybody coming together. And he was overtaken by, how beautiful life is.
Wow. So did you have to pause the shooting sometimes to cry or let out the emotions?
Sometimes. I mean, the two young leads, Jo Lulette and Kira Jang, because it's Kira's story. She's the one that's learning how to be a witness, because in the future there's no technology, there's no photography, and these young teenagers have to do some service, and if they're artistic, they document end-of-life protocols. So this is her first day on the job, right? So, and Joel plays Daniel, this young man that's teaching her. And so they're all very matter-of-fact, here we go. Or he is, because he's been doing this for a while, and he's so young. But for her, it's the first time that she's ever seen this, and she's very moved by it.
Well, you said that, you had to take pauses. It was very emotional.
My boom operator was crying.
Oh,
so that's a problem.
Well, I wanted to ask, was this the biggest challenge with the film, or do you have another aspect to add to it, like during the production, or maybe thinking of the plot? What was the biggest challenge?
Oh my goodness. Well, being on location is always difficult. It's not a big budget film, so we had very little time, and we had to, we just had to move very fast, even though it's a very slow film. And I had gone out and I had location scouted everything before, and there were meadows filled with beautiful flowers, and there were lilies on the lake that were all coming up. And also there were foxgloves everywhere. Foxgloves are very important in the film. Foxgloves and what they represent, because a foxglove is completely poisonous, and it's where digitalis comes from, which is a heart medication. And so we got all the locations, and then there was a heat wave, and everything crispified. All the foxgloves died. The meadows turned brown. The lilies turned yellow. And suddenly, well, I mean, it's perfect for the theme, and it looks beautiful, but suddenly the whole palette changed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the whole palette changed from spring, summer to crispy.
Crispy. Did you have to fix it in post-production?
No.
We
just changed. That's just it. Is that something happens? I mean, it's nature. It's the world.
You cannot change.
You cannot change nature.
Yes.
It made its voice heard. It says, "We want yellow." Nature wants yellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
The time is running out, sadly, but I want to ask you the last question.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit. It's a question that you need to think a little bit more. If you go back during the process of the film, making the film, what is the one thing that you want to change?
Oh, well, you know what? I think every filmmaker, every project, you could do that. You could go back and you could critique your work, and you could think, I could have done this, could have done that. But once the film is finished, I try not to do that, because it is what it became. You know what I mean? So it's now a time capsule for all those decisions that were made. There's all reasons, some are good, some are better than others. If I could change one thing, I would have more time.
To make the film.
Yeah, and I think that's the point of the film. We would all like more time.
Yeah. We uncovered so much about the story and those behind-the-scene moments. Huge thanks to Ann Marie for joining us here. And I hope you're going to enjoy your stay in Estonia. I hope the weather is going to be a little bit better. It's raining right now, so go get some sleep, get the jet lag away, and let's roll till the end of PÖFF.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.